what would I be able to expect to complete after taking the course?
There are, and this is stuff that I feel like people don't tell you when you're first getting started. Not to say it's nowhere, but it's just some really clear advice would be there are 5 programming languages that are the 80%, like the 80-20 Pareto principle, like that we really need to focus on. The 80% that can get you some really good results. And those are, I'll list them off: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
Yep.
Python and SQL. Those 5.
Today, we are joined by founder and dean at onemonth.com, where you can learn how to code in 30 days, which is pretty ridiculous. He's also the host of the Learn to Code in 1 Month podcast. Chris Castiglione, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Chris, it is my pleasure. Really excited to chat with you about this topic. I was actually chatting with my brother. He does coding in Denver over the weekend. We were kind of talking about it. So I'm looking forward to continuing that conversation with you here, Chris. So let me ask you this. If we back it up 10 years, did you ever expect that you would be teaching people how to code in 2020?
I didn't ever think that becoming a code was going to be cool or sexy or really even helpful for the general public. I was a developer for 10 years until around 2010 when I started teaching it. And all of a sudden I started seeing all the amazing ways it could be used for social good, business, and all this stuff. So 10 years ago, no, I was still in the dark, but now it's been really awesome.
Yeah, it's certainly funny how life has a way of kind of sorting itself out as you keep taking steps forward, opening up doors, and you really don't know what's going to be through the next one. And so you kind of mentioned why coding is important to you. But for me, as a side hustler, as a business owner, trying to make something happen, why should I care about coding? Come on, lay it on me. Why should I care?
Mark, I feel like you're setting me up for that one, because I feel like if you do run a successful business, and I feel like if you have come across trying to figure out for yourself whether it's marketing, customer acquisition, looking at data analytics, to do anything from figure out pricing to best products, all of these things today work with code. I have a phrase I use called low code. I don't think you need to become a developer in order to use these systems, but if you know like a low amount of code, enough to write some JavaScript, do some embeds, do a little Python, and really just kind of talk the talk of what these, if you're lost already, like that's the problem, right? So it's like even just being able to be at the table and be able to absorb the tips and tricks that keep you relevant and keep you sharp. You need at least a little bit of code knowledge for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, I think a lot of times as a side hustler, you're putting that after hours time in. You don't have a ton of money to hire an entire web develop or web design team, right? So, if you're building something out on Shopify, WordPress, a lot of these other sites, totally. There is some coding on the back end. But one of the things I'm kind of curious about, Chris, where do you see coding going? Because what I've noticed with a lot of these sites is it's becoming very much more user-friendly, a lot of drag and drop stuff. Are we even really going to need to code in 5 years? How relevant it's going to be?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So, I mean, 5 years, definitely, like not that much is going to change in 5 years. But I do think there's an interesting question about, in 20 years, in 30 years, like is there at some point we're not going to need to learn to code? I think there's some things that are about that are true and some things that are not true. I think, for example, like the most cutting edge features and the language in which to do these things, the apps that you're referring to, whether it's like Webflow or Squarespace, are always like a step behind. So, what the web's really good at right now, I mean, for some examples is like Squarespace can make websites and, really quickly, or WordPress can kind of manage your e-commerce or something like that. But that's still stuff we were like able to do 10 years ago. They're just kind of packaging it in a way. Now there's things with whether it's AI or prediction algorithms and all this kind of stuff that, like, if you really want to tap into that, there isn't the interface and you're going to be 10 years behind. So I think it's always kind of an arms race. And I think knowing, again, a little bit of code, what I'd call low code, is enough that you can stay competitive.
Yeah. And just being able to talk the talk. I mean, even if you're not going to need to be a full-time coder, you're not going to be coding in 10, 20 years, at least Definitely. Being relevant now, because this is, I mean, we're seeing huge transformation of the way that communication is shared, the way that business is done. I mean, how many companies now are moving their workforce remotely and trying to adjust to that? I mean,
I have bad news for you, Mark.
all
All of them at the moment.
right,
That's all I'm going to say about that.
right. And so,
Just kidding around.
I mean, look, I think that's why this is really relevant right now, is because if you're stuck doing the same thing that you've done for the last 10 years, 20 years, you're in big trouble, which is one of the reasons that I think. Hey, Mark here. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Let YouTube know you're enjoying this video. Let me know you're enjoying this video. All right, let's get back into this episode. You have a very, very compelling tagline. Learn to code in just 1 month. How, are you serious? Learn to code in just 1 month. How is that going to be possible, Chris? How can that happen?
Well, not only is it possible, but we've had over 120,000 students complete our courses and have that experience for themselves. And what we're doing there, what we're able to do is, I mean, I'll just share my personal story. Is I taught myself how to code, and it was a really painful experience because there, you feel it, right? You go out there and there's a million websites and different YouTube videos. There's books you can buy that are like, I don't know, the size of the JavaScript Bible. Like, it's like crazy intimidating. And what I found though is that if you know what you want to make and you have a clear vision, I want to make a portfolio site. I want to make even a project that our students make in the first week is a GIF search engine, right? If you know where you're going and you know the problem you're trying to solve, then it's just working backwards, and it's like a recipe, So all of our courses are project based, and in 30 days, every week, you make one project. So 4 projects in 1 month. And with every project you're making, you're learning the skills how to code. So, at the end of 30 days, are you able, if you take the Python course, are you able to get a job at Google to working on their Python team? Absolutely not. No. Are you able to I don't know, do some complex algorithm AI blah 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 thing with I don't know, like with Elon Musk or something, like no, you know what I mean? It's just like putting it into perspective. But can you use these skills to do some basic data scraping, like to maybe set up an API, to do things that help your business, all these kind of things? Like, yes. So there's a wide array of things that I think I know our students, we call them, are really appreciative of, and we call them gold coin moments, kind of like in Mario when you're like, ba-bing, ba-bing, and you get like a nice thing in your day. You're like, damn, I fucking did that, right? That's kind of what we try to go for. Every week you have one of these moments when you're like, damn, I did that. And all along the way you're learning to code. So that's the experience. And after that first month, we like to say it's the best first month, and then it would probably take, I would say, at least another 6 months of continuing and refining those skills.
Yeah. So that's interesting. You brought up a couple key points here. The first of which, I'm thinking of, okay, I take this 30 days, I'm going to have a pretty decent understanding of the terminology, the verbology, understanding how it all works. I might not be working for Google, but I might be able to pick up a freelancing job, or might be able to help a local business in cleaning up their website a little bit, right?
100%.
I mean,
that's the goal.
That is it, right? That's the perfect formula of taking your side hustle full time. Because historically, the way that you do that is you go to college, you take out $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in debt, and then you cross your fingers you're not working at retail for the rest of your life, right?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious. You're an adjunct professor at Columbia University. How are you taking your experience in the university scene and applying that to the curriculum at onemonth.com?
Yeah. So I guess the question is, how does the Columbia course influence the courses at 1 month?
Well, I'm thinking, you've had a lot of experience in the university scene. You know how people learn, how human beings learn, and are you taking that and evolving it based on your personal experiences? I mean, 120,000 people, that's no joke. That's
and I think that's exactly why Columbia reached out to us, to my co-founder and I, in 2015, because they saw the results that they were getting. Students in their MBA program were using 1 month, and they were like, maybe we could just hire these guys, So that's how we got started in that. And I would say the way that the in-person courses influence the online courses. And what I would say is also part of our special sauce, is both myself and my co-founder, we've been teaching in person for over a decade. I was the first teacher. If you've heard of General Assembly, I was the first teacher there to teach a course here in New York, and help them spread their courses to over a dozen General Assemblies around the world, teaching people how to code, design, entrepreneurial skills. And so in that experience, like I was doing that literally every day for almost 3 years. In that experience, I found that one of the secrets to people learning how to code is motivation.
Yeah.
Just like everything else in life, going to the gym, having a diet. And so those are psychological kind of I would say like ways of psychologically framing how you think about coding, whether it's setting up a goal, that's why we call it 1 month, because we really believe if you put aside just like 15, 20 minutes a day. So setting up good patterns, having accountability and ways to check in along the way, having support when you get stuck, is trying to figure out what are the things that people get stuck on. And we've spent a lot of time trying to remove those. So that's been our journey. And a lot of that wouldn't be possible online if we hadn't taught so many people in real life and have been able to test out our curriculum.
I mean, I think that's a really important thing to do, is taking the skills that you've learned from one industry and continuously evolving them and transforming them to other industries. I mean, that's really important. You also mentioned earlier that you're not so much giving the course load based on you have to pass a test. You're giving the courses on we're going to finish a project each week. So to me, that seems like a really nice carrot, right? It's okay, I'm going to get a carrot at the end of each week, and that's
exactly.
I mean that sounds huge. So just for example, let's say I take one of the courses after 30 days, after 1 month, what would I be able to expect to complete after taking the course?
Yeah. So, I mean, here's a really good learning if you're considering learning how to code and you're an entrepreneur. There are, and this is stuff that I feel like people don't tell you when you're first getting started. Not to say it's nowhere, but it's just some really clear advice would be there are 5 programming languages that are the 80%, like the 80-20 Pareto principle, like that we really need to focus on, the 80% that can get you some really good results. And those are, I'll list them off: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
Yep.
Python and SQL, those 5. And so HTML and CSS, that's like those always work together. So that's what you see on the interface. If you're using Squarespace or WordPress or any of these visual, you need to know that in order to make visually your site look good. And then the other 3 are about data. And SQL is about the database. Python is about, let's say, like parsing data, doing things with data, being able to write algorithms that are automated, this kind of thing. And then JavaScript kind of helps connect it in some ways, which I won't go into too much right now.
So probably when someone's being onboarded into the program, they say, hey, this is my goal. This is what I want to learn. You say, okay, let's start you with the HTML and CSS, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's what we start everybody off with. And so we make that clear path. So it's these 5 languages you can go through. And yeah, in the HTML course, by the end of it, just within the 4th week, you are making an Airbnb clone. So it looks exactly like Airbnb, and you're doing it from scratch.
Wow.
All the buttons, all the colors, you understand how to use the different language of colors on the internet, and how to make it look good for mobile as well, so that it's responsive. So that's what you're doing there. In the Python course, we do work with APIs and tying together the front end, the HTML and the CSS, together with the back end, so that you can launch your website live on a server. So we talk a little about servers and back end and some data analytics work as well.
Yeah, super smart. And again, if you're trying to take your side hustle full time, coding will get you there, because I can tell you, working with a lot of different virtual assistants from all over the world, the people that understand code are getting paid a premium for that skill. It is certainly very valuable. And if you want to learn, you can go to onemonth.com or simply listen to Chris's podcast, Learn to Code in 1 Month podcast.
Yeah.
So
that's great.
Great way to start. Okay, cool. So I'm going to kind of back it up a little bit and go a little bit more deep into the course itself and how you formulated the course. Over 120,000 people served. Completion rates. That is like the hardest thing for online course builders to actually execute on. How are you executing on that? 120,000 people is a pretty big number. How are you actually getting people to get through and finish it? What's the magic sauce for the completion rate with your company?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Completion rate is something that we focused on very deliberately over the past years of the company. When so we have a few different ways that we've tried the course. We've A/B tested so many different variations of running these courses. Everything from a la carte, go as you wish, to emailing every day, just one lesson for 30 days, to in Slack, we've run courses as well. And we do that still for enterprise, right? We'll have a whole team come in, 20 people, and we could run it in real time, get time on the calendar, right? Like 5 to 6 after work. We're all going to do that once a week. So there's been a lot of different variations, and that leads to a lot of different completion rates. But what we found seems to really serve people both at the price point that we were trying to hit, which is $299 a month, $299 a year, actually, $299 a year, to allow as many people come in, because we don't want to be one of these. There are a lot of other solutions which are like
Very expensive.
$10,000, very expensive, or college. Since the beginning, we've really wanted to serve as many people as possible with a really high quality coding education, and that involves some level of support. So having Q&A along the way when you get stuck. And for our Python course, you can submit, because Python, it is a little bit more difficult, and I think having a person you could submit to, and we actually will give you feedback on your code, which students really appreciate. So in the courses, in the 5 main courses that I listed, the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Python courses, we do something called a commitment. And of the students that commit up front and they say, we are going to take this course, and we commit to finishing the week, right? By Sunday. Sunday's the deadline. 80% of the students complete the course that sign the commitment and say they're going to finish it. And then at the end, we check those and we verify that. So that's really been important to us. That's not for everybody, which is why you don't have to sign the commitment if you don't want to, but we wanted to make it available. And we found that motivation, like I said, just all ties back to motivation, really goes a long way on the internet when there's just so many distractions and so many.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's really smart. I mean, one of the things that I found it really helps with commitment is getting cash, getting money. People, once they put money down. So assumedly, if they're going to give you $300, it's because they want the final product. They want to learn these skills. The commitment, 100%. I mean, that's gold. That's absolute gold. So listen, if you're creating a course, write that down. Have them write it down. Have them commit. I really like that.
Yeah.
That's really, really.
You're totally right. Like I find that act of writing it down, it's really interesting too, because I get a lot of people at the bottom say PS reply, and I'll respond back. So I read all these emails, and I get a lot of people that will tell me, like, I have this in the way, I have this, I'm not sure of my goals. And like, that's actually like a really good moment to like, let's talk through that. Because if things are coming up, like I said, it's psychological. It's like, if you have roadblocks in your head, that's going to stop you from reaching any goal. And so we need to address that, or at least make that known before you even take the course.
Yeah. And another thing that I think that y'all do that's interesting over at onemonth.com, Chris, is you start the new curriculum every Monday, right? Because typically when I think of courses, it's just click it, pay me, take it. It's all automated, hands off. How did you come to starting it on every Monday? How do we get there?
Yeah, that was another thing that we tested quite a bit. The idea being Monday is the day you start. And like I said, Sunday is when the homework is due. Every month course is 4 weeks. And it just made sense in the surveys and a lot of the student feedback that we did. People like the idea of just like a calendar, kind of like, a work week calendar. Like, I'm going to start on Monday. I know what's kind of coming ahead of me. And then it also gives you that buffer of having a weekend. If you didn't finish everything, well, then you have Saturday and Sunday, and hopefully that's your time to do catch up. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people will spend that Sunday doing their catch up, but whatever works for you.
Do you also bring in like a sense of community with classmates, right? So, hey, this is the group that's starting this Monday. These are your classmates. We're all signing commitments. Is that another way to kind of facilitate that completion ratio?
Yeah, we only do that right now with the enterprise level. So, we found that it helps when a company can, because then we can control it based on, sometimes it's a little bit tricky with people's schedules. And we found, if people are like in California or in like Europe, it's a little difficult. So we tend to do that with the enterprise level and not so much with the consumer level at this point.
Okay, interesting. So let's say that someone's interested in coding. Do you find that there's any sort of specific personality types or skill sets that are conducive, or is it kind of like a one size fits all? What have you found as far as completion rates go?
I think it's such a myth when people say, "Oh, yeah, I would like to do that, but I don't have that kind of mind to do that. I don't have that kind of brain to do that."
Sure.
Coding is a language. It'd be the same as learning, if you speak English, maybe learning a second language like Spanish.
Mhm.
Millions and millions, maybe I'm sure billions of people at this point speak two languages. It's really about just putting in the time. And I think also people don't, like I said, have a clear goal of like why they're doing it. So many students come to us because they've taken maybe a code academy for a while, and they get a little frustrated because they don't understand, why am I just like making numbers add? Like, how does that help me with my business?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think part of the challenge, I think anyone can do it. If you have some motivation and you know what you're doing. And I'd also say that if this sounds like something that you might want to get involved with, I think absorbing from podcasts, absorbing from YouTube videos is a good way to say, like, is this something I'm interested in? And then I would say, find somebody in your life who you admire who knows this and talk with them. And that's an exercise I have my Columbia students do, because they're finance majors, they're in accounting. And I recognize connecting them with like, why am I doing this is sometimes tricky. So in the second course, I have them reach out to somebody who's using code in their life. And I have a few ways that we go through finding that person, and then reaching out to that person and interviewing them for the class and talking about their learnings. And I find that, I found a lot of things that I've done in my life, whether it's learning how to play music or learning a second language, come from having a friend who I'm like, man, that's really cool. Like, I want to do that. And then being like, that person's smart, but like, I could do it too, like feeling like it was attainable. So, yeah.
That's a really good piece of advice, Chris, is talk to the people that are actually doing it and living it already. I remember after high school, I got this job in the AC field, and it was paying good. It's more money I ever made before. But I'm talking to the people that I'm working with, and they were not happy that that's what they were doing. So listen, talk to people that are living it and learning it. And that is sound advice. That's sound advice. Another thing you mentioned here, Chris, Learn to Code in 1 month, the podcast. Right? Learn to Code in 1 month podcast. Why did you decide that you wanted to start a podcast? What was that motivation? What was that aha moment? You're like, you know what? I need to do a podcast. When did that come around?
Wow. Yeah. Great question, Mark. Well, we're on a podcast right now. So I really love podcasts. I created my first podcast in 2010. So quite a bit ago. And I've had quite a few in that time. Some super successful and some not successful at all. But what I find that's just fascinating, and I think why I share that is the podcast, it is basically free to get started.
Yeah.
And the scale at which you can reach people for the cost, if you go to libsyn.com, that's what I use. It's a little old school, but they've been around for a while. For like $5 or $15, somewhere in between there, you can start an account, and you could literally potentially reach like 1 million people tomorrow and not have to worry about bandwidth issues, not have to worry about, now distribution's getting a little bit harder, but back in 2010, there was like nobody doing this.
Right.
And, if you were on that system, I'd show up in iTunes sometimes. And now, now it's also, we're competing for Spotify. Distribution's getting a little bit more challenging, but I think, the long form, getting to know the host, I think that's why people come to you as well, Mark, is like people know, they start to learn your values. They learn the type of people that you're inspired by. And what a great, I love learning, and what a better way to learn when you can really trust someone and really kind of like really get in their mind in such a frictionless, cheap, affordable way. So, I think podcasts are amazing, and I think they're only going to continue to grow. And then I think we're not at all well done with the future of podcasting. There's a lot more to go.
No, certainly not. Certainly not.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, in my opinion, like you said, Chris, I don't think there's any one better way to build know, like, and trust with your audience, because it's like you mentioned, you can reach millions of people, but it feels very intimate when someone puts those earbuds in and they're listening to you. You are building authority. You're building your network, and it gives you unprecedented access It's really smart. I'm kind of curious. How is it? When did you start? When did you start the podcast? The Learn to Code 1 month.
Learn to Code was started in April of 2019, so
Okay.
fairly recently.
Okay. Yeah. So fairly recently, did you notice an immediate hit or a tick to your conversions to 1 month, or has it been kind of a gradual thing? Podcasting is an interesting thing too. It's definitely a long game, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, did you see the needle move right away, or how did that impact your business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, one thing that we benefit from is we have a rather large newsletter that I send out every other week. And so being able to launch the podcast and take the 1 month audience, like the 1 month audience was very excited about the podcast. So that really helped grow the podcast. And then what I found, like I said, it was only last April. I want to say a few months into it, maybe 3 to 6 months into it, there was a wave, and there continues to be a wave of students. So one thing we do is every time anyone purchases a 1 month course, there's a required field, just how did you hear about us, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You see it all the time, super simple, drop down box, and the podcast is one of them. And so, we've been able to look at the results that our podcast has, and I'll emphasize that it was important strategy for us, because we were paying a lot to do podcast advertising or Facebook advertising, this kind of thing. And so being able to own that revenue stream or that distribution stream for attention is super important. So seeing how that has been, once we create those episodes, I mean, they're out there, anyone can find them and anyone can join. And so we are continuing to see not only customers, but we've had a fair share of enterprise clients, because I think people are looking for, who's knowledgeable about talking the talk and how do I train my employees? And we've had enterprise. I always put my email at the end. Every podcast, I'm just like, my email is Chris at 1 month. I just give my email just like that. Because I don't know, I have nothing to hide. I want to make it as easy as possible for people to reach out. I do have an assistant and a team of people that help me with my email. So to be fair, but I want to make it, if someone is trying to solve this problem, I want to be there to try to help them. So that's what the podcast has been, and it's definitely been really helpful.
That's awesome. And I definitely could see that impacting on an enterprise level too. If they're trying to see how are we going to train our employees, well, this has a podcast, this one doesn't. It's kind of like if I'm going to find a restaurant and this restaurant is on Google and they have Google reviews, and this one doesn't have any Google reviews.
Oh my gosh!
I'm following the Google reviews. It's amazing. 100%. It's amazing how many people are late to the Google review game. It's just shocking.
Yeah, it builds trust. I mean, that's what we're talking about. It's like, at the end of the day, you kind of don't know what to trust on the internet, but there's like these signals, and you're like, that Google reviews, I could probably trust that more than no reviews. So you make a choice.
Well, I think what's interesting, Chris, is a lot of business owners understand the power of word of mouth. But when they think word of mouth, all they think is, okay, my customer's going to tell their friend or their mom or their word of mouth impacts in different ways. The testimonials online can serve as a form of word of mouth in my experience,
Yeah, 1,000,000%.
Yeah. So
and the podcast reviews too. You have a ton of great reviews for this podcast, and that goes a long way as well. People see that, and then it's just like it's like you're signaling. You're like, I don't even have to hide this stuff. It's like public. You can see it, and and we feel the same way too. It's just like that's a form of word of mouth. I think it's something that you kind of can't game, and it's public, and it's really helpful. Yeah.
And reputation matters. Reputation matters. Anyone that went to high school understands reputation matters.
It's basically what we're talking about.
it definitely matters. All right, cool. So, Chris, before we let you go, we got to get into some rapid fire. Of course, we're talking to Chris Castiglione from onemonth.com, host of the Learn to Code 1 Month podcast. Chris, you ready to rock? You buckled in?
All right, let's go.
All right.
What do you got for me? You told me we were going to rapid fire, so I'm not sure what's going to be fired, but I'm ready.
We will see.
Whatever ones you're going to choose.
Yeah, so buckle up. We're going to start with an all-time classic. What is a must-have business item for less than $50? I know.
I don't know the answer to that. I sincerely don't know if I know the answer to that, but we use Asana, and I really like it to run our business. We use Pivotal Tracker for our coding for our developers. So I think those are two tools that I feel like I'm in a lot every day, just for managing the team. But I don't know if I have like a super great hack other than that.
That's fair enough. Those are very relevant, very affordable as well. You have 10 seconds with yourself 10 years ago. What do you say?
10 seconds of myself 10 years ago. Whoa. Okay, man. I think just like everything's gonna work out, and just no. You know what? I'd say trust yourself and have faith, and just be open. Just be open to whatever comes your way. Yeah.
I like that. Keep opening doors because you never know what's going to be behind each one. Awesome. So if you could only have one social media app on your phone, Chris, what would you have?
My gosh, I hate all of them.
This is brutal.
I think my one app, I only do have one app on my phone, and it's Instagram, and it's like a guilty pleasure. So if I had to get rid of that though, I mean, I just think like iMessage
Okay.
or WhatsApp.
You
like,
could you could keep one, so you can keep
Yeah.
your Instagram. You'll be good. You're good.
I'll
But
keep Instagram.
you can't have Instagram and TikTok. You only have one, brother. I'm sorry.
I'm better off.
That's fair enough. That's fair. Although I do like TikTok quite a bit for just mass. There's a guy who just reached, I think, like 45 million people drinking cranberry juice on a skateboard. Like TikTok TikTok's got some magic there. So don't.
They get rebroadcast on, and so I saw that on Instagram.
Right.
Like, yeah, but yeah.
That's another cool thing. So what I do with these videos is I chop them up and reformat them, and I can put them in both places. You
put these on TikTok as well.
Yeah. We put clips on
that's
TikTok.
Really smart. Nice, like that a lot.
That's why I do what I do. All right, cool. So you wake up in the morning, Chris. There's only one business task you can do for the day. What are you going to do?
Business task?
Only one business task. Yeah.
I would probably just do a stand up with my team. That's what we do. Is just like, what did you do yesterday, and what are you working on today? And just send out that email. Make sure I got a reply from everybody.
I like it. I'm with that. And final question for you. You've got a billboard that can reach millions and millions and millions of people. What are you going to tell everybody, Chris?
I really like this Mary Oliver quote. You maybe have heard it. It's tell me what it is you plan to do with your one wild and precious life. I think it's a good thing to kind of check in with every day, because I think that having a business, of course you need money to make a business, but I think that there are other reasons, about helping people and like doing some awesome work in the world. And so I think, just kind of checking in with why you're doing the work you're doing. And I think that's like a really important check-in for me. And I want, maybe for everyone around me, I would like to imagine that would be the world I lived in.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, if you serve others, I don't think you really have to worry about money at the end of the day. Awesome. We've been talking to Chris Castiglione from onemonth.com. Chris, thanks so much.
Mark, thank you so much. This is great. I really appreciated it.
Thank you so much for watching. I'm glad you enjoyed this episode. I've got several other episodes right here for you. Smash one of these videos to make sure that you don't miss out on the tips, tools, and tactics of industry experts. Let's take that side hustle full time. Smash one of these links.